Welcome to this webinar organised by the Eastern Suburbs Regional Group of the Order of Australia Association. My name is Jeffrey Grinton and I'm privileged to be chairperson of this group. It's a privilege to be able to welcome our speaker tonight, Libby Anderson. So Libby, a warm welcome to you. Thank you very much for being with us. Libby's going to talk about her project, Quilts for Orphans. Welcome to you. We look forward to hearing what you're going to say to us.
So thank you very much, everyone, for having me. And I was just going to share a little bit of our story, Quilts for Orphans, based in the Yarra Ranges. And we welcome the opportunity to change lives one fabric hug at a time. So we started, Quilts for Orphans started with a lady called Gaynor in around about 2005, and she was looking for something to do with purpose after she had had breast cancer and several years of treatment, and she wasn't able to go back to work full time. So she had contacted an outreach through the Mount Evelyn Christian Fellowship, had an outreach to India supporting over 20 children's homes. And so she began making clothes that were shipped over to India. And then there was a call out for beanies and scarves. And Gaynor was a great one for putting in goals for her projects. So she set a goal of making 1,000 beanies and scarves with her daughter and a friend of hers. And other women heard about her endeavour, and they became known as Chicks with Sticks. A number of local CWA groups were joining in, and bags of beanies and scarves came flooding in. And you can see on the screen there, they ended up with 3,000. So from a goal of 1,000, Gaynor well and truly met the goal. And then she was looking for something else to do, and so went back to the organisation and said, well, what else could I be doing, to help with the children's homes? And they said, look, the children are sleeping on bamboo mats on a concrete floor. So could you perhaps make some quilts? So she set about making quilts in terms of fabric hugs, which would wrap the children in love from across the other side of the world. So in 2007, Quilts for Orphans was born. Again, started with Gaynor and her daughter and a friend of hers. And I'm not sure of the actual month. I think it was earlier in 2007. But by October, there were a few more ladies that joined in. And Gaynor set the goal of making 2,000 quilts in 2007. So there's one of the children's homes in India, and Gaynor with displays around quilting for India. And the second Saturday in each month, a group of ladies, and it grew and grew, took over the entire house. And some of our regional members from way back in the early days, 2007, said they literally did. They went in and had tables set up everywhere, veranda, all through the house. And Reg, Gaynor's husband, was on lunch duty. So very much, family affair. And ladies getting together and making wonderful works of art for children in need overseas. They were able to do some fundraising and gain some donations. So on the farm in Mumbalk, they were able to build a barn that was designated for making quilts. So it's moving out of the house and into the barn. So far, we come to 2024 and we've gifted over 6,000 quilts. which is incredible. Again, I'll set the goal for 2,000 and we keep going. And not just India, but there've been many other countries. So India, China, Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Lesotho, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, New Zealand with the flood victims, and then locally, the Cerebral Palsy Education Centre, Queen Elizabeth Centre, Babes Project, Ben Warren, a retreat in Yarra Junction for women and children, Life's Little Treasures for the babies that are born premature, Heavenly Trimmings that's based in Melbourne, Refuge Victoria, that's a project that Maroondah Rotary support, a number of aged care settings, the Royal Children's Hospital, the paediatric ICU unit, Monash Children's Hospital with Monash newborns, St Kilda Mums, Different Journeys, working with young people with autism, Oz Comfort Quilts, and displaced Ukrainians who came to Melbourne in 2022. So many countries. And so we've branched out, not just looking at supporting orphanages, but wherever there's a need. So we've moved from Gaynor's farm. We are very fortunate to have the sole lease of the Hoddles Creek Hall. And we focus on quilt sizes, mainly smaller, for cots and covering the isolates in hospitals to single bed size. And then the ones in between, we do the lap quilts, but we don't do really anything bigger than the single size. So we have a number of supporters that live across Australia and they send us their quilt tops, and we also make quilt tops. We meet at the hall on a Tuesday as well as the second Saturday in the month. And as you can see, we've got lots of things in the hall, and it's wonderful to be able to have the sole use of the hall because we can leave everything set up. So we have teams, we're preparing and making the quilt tops through to doing the quilting. So we've got a long arm quilting machine in the hall. It's a hand-guided machine. And some of us have got quilting machines in our own homes, and some do quilting on their domestic sewing machines. So it's quite a lot of work gets completed in the quilts, and then we look at trimming them and binding them. So all working, as a team. Fundraising is a big part of our of what we do as well, because we do need to fund the wadding and the backing fabric and the costs of being in the hall. And Gaynor was a great one for finding all sorts of donations. And you can see in the first photo, rolls and rolls of upholstery fabric that was delivered by trucks, trailers to Gaynor's house, and she'd stored them in the veranda and gradually worked her way through selling them off as upholstery fabric, and ladies got together, made bean bags, cushions, all sorts of things for a couple of years. They had the fabric there. Every year we do a craft and quilt sale. That's usually in November. And a lot of people also donate, patterns, and we call them de-stashes, and fabric. So we also get to sell that as well. And every little thing, helps. With that. We've had some ladies that have done markets as part of the group, but we're finding with the average age of 70 in the 70 years of age, it is quite exhausting with doing the market. So we're looking at other ways and some easier ways of raising some money. For the last couple of years, we've had a display in November at Mont Delancey, which is an historic homestead in Wandon. And we've also been speaking to different groups, so Probus, View Club, Senior Citizens Group, groups, community groups, and you'll be wondering, like, why on earth is a lady there dressed up in a raincoat and got the billy with a fire? We were invited to share at a community group at a local aged care setting, and the lady that was organising it said, "I'm not going to tell them it's about quilts, Libby, because I want the men to come." So I said, "It's all right, we'll have something entertaining." So we did share the story about a wagga, which is a uniquely Australian I guess, invention of quilts going back in the 1800s. They were originally quilts that were made out of hessian and stuffed with anything that they could find, and they were made by men to keep them warm, over winter. And so we were able to share a few interesting stories as well. So in terms of what does it cost us, if we were to buy the fabric and really the backing fabric at full retail price, it's around $40 to complete a single quilt and $15 to complete the smaller quilts. However, we've got a lady who's our purchasing person, and she finds all sorts of bargains with the backing fabrics. So we've been able to keep our costs down and stretch the dollars a little bit further. We also have support from Victorian Textiles, and they were able to buy the large rolls of wadding from them at a very, very discounted price, and they really haven't changed the price since 2007 when Gaynor first approached them. So it's wonderful to have that that backing as well. So from a roll of 30 metres of wadding, we can make it about 22 single size quilt tops, and then with the leftovers, we join them together for the cot quilts. And with our fixed operating costs are about $7,400 a year now that we're in the hall, covering insurances, the energy bills, maintenance and repairs on machines, and all sorts of things that go with being in a hall. We're very fortunate in December last year that we were recognised through the Casey Community Volunteer Awards. So that was, an honour for the group to be recognised there. And we have, lots of ladies that turn up weekly and monthly, being involved, putting our fabric hugs together. At the moment, we're supported through the Yarra Ranges Council. We have a project that's funded by them called Connected and Vibrant Communities. So our goal is to make 50 quilts and complete 50 quilts to gift for those in need in the Yarra Ranges towards the end of November. And we started off, we've done some trial runs with a technique that's called quilt as you go. So you actually make the quilt as you go and you're quilting it together, and the community quilts. And we started with a lot of the fabric that we have in the hall and a scrap fabric that people had donated, the D-stash. So we had a lot of yellow. So we thought, okay, we'll start with a yellow quilt, but what can we do to generate a bit of interest? So we called it Gone Bananas, and we've got the yellow quilt that's, you can see behind me. So that's our Gone Bananas, quilt. So just to bring a little bit of, new ideas to the group and help each other learn some new skills, and just to get that connection again in terms of post-pandemic and lockdowns. And it's taking a little bit of time, but just getting people together, with that. We've got a few fundraising activities coming up, and we're also registered with the container deposit scheme, which gives us a little bit of money here and there with the 10-cent containers, but it all adds up and helps buy some backing fabric. And we also have a website. We do our newsletter. We're on Facebook and blog as well through our website. And we've got Annette, who's one of our members. She actually was our president and has then stepped down at our AGM just a couple of weeks ago, put together a poem. So a fabric hug journey, nearby, local and some overseas, to tea plantations and refugees. Love and hope stitched in between, pieced and quilted in every seam. Quilts for orphans throughout the year send fabric hugs both far and near. To lost and lonely, orphaned poor, homeless, aged, the sick and more. Volunteers continue to sow, and blessings around the globe do flow. I can tell you a little bit about how I joined Quilts for Orphans. It was in 2018, and I did know Gaynor, and for a couple of years I'd bump into her and she would say, "Libby, you need to join us. You like sewing." I said, "I know, but in my busy role as a principal, life gets busy and I'm quite tired on a Saturday and just relax." And she's going, "But you need to come and do something different from what you're doing during the week." So I thought, yes, that does make sense. So I did join in 2018, and I would, go along the second Saturday in the month. And it was just fascinating. And I think because I'd started to think, okay, eventually I'm going to look at retiring in a few years' time. So trying to link in with doing something with purpose in the lead up to that. And it was fascinating. Listen to the stories of the ladies as they're doing hand sewing and the binding. We had ladies that had been, nurses overseas and during World War II, and the stories that they had, or different places that they'd lived and worked in. And I think for quilting, it's that sense of community and people coming together, and it's the stories that we've got to tell and to share. So with Gaynor starting this group, like one lady with her daughter and a friend, it's just been incredible to watch where things have gone since 2007, to actually look at what we've put together, as the whole group and organisation. 6,000 fabric hugs going to children and women, mums, in need, locally and overseas. So all in all, Quilts for Orphans is a blessing, not to just to those that we're able to help, but to each other and each and every participant. There's no better feeling than being able to meet up, whether weekly or monthly, in a spirit of giving, to chat, sew, learn, have morning tea, that's always important, and collaborate in making the fabric hugs. And we enjoy receiving parcels of quilt tops, completed quilts, and craft that people make from all over Australia. We've got several ladies in Townsville, places in New South Wales, in Northern Territory that send in parcels. And so it's just incredible about, I think, what one person could do, where she had an idea, and to have that idea of doing something with purpose, and the, just the flow on effect that helps, not just people that we're giving to, but to each other as well, particularly for a number of us that as we've retired and looking for something to do. So that's our story in a nutshell, Quilts for Orphans.
Thank you so much, Libby. It's amazing how something starts with one idea and then continues to grow. And that's, I think, a common theme that often runs through activities of people who are associated with our organisation. That's
Yes.
a very common story.
Yeah. I actually forgot to say we have a committee. We run with this committee of 7. We actually have around 70 members in the group. We have a number of supporters as well, and membership is free. We don't charge, for membership. I think that's too hard to keep track of.
And something I should have said at the beginning of the session was that when we put out the publicity for this session, it said that Libby was the Vice President of Quilts for Orphans. At the last AGM, Libby has told me that she is now the President. So congratulations. I'm sure the organisation is very grateful to you for stepping up into to that new role.
Thank you.
There may well be some questions from people who are here. If you've got a question, then unmute yourself and wave a hand, and I'll recognise that. But while people are thinking about it, Libby, distributing this number of quilts to all of the various places must be quite a challenge at times. Can you tell us something about the processes that you've got there for distributing the final product?
Yes, yeah. So in the early days with India, there were a number of containers going across to the children's homes and I guess the villages with equipment that they needed. So they would put in, bags of quilts, bags of clothes, so the containers. And they were in the days where companies would donate, a container and ship it over. Nowadays, it's not as easy to get those kinds of donations. We have always looked at gifting directly. So we don't go through, we don't just post things off and hope that they get there. So it's through local connections, and there might be youth groups that are travelling, a local school in our area does a trip over to Thailand every 2 years with their senior students, looking at doing humanitarian aid and helping build, like in a village, or painting the school. So those students come along and choose a quilt, and sometimes the school will say, okay, we've got a extra baggage allowance, so they'll be able to take some extra quilts with them. Fortunately, I had a friend, we had worked and taught in China, and a friend came and visited last Christmas. So I was very cheeky because I knew that she had connections with palliative care centre for children in China. So I said, oh, how much luggage are you bringing? And she said, oh, I'm only bringing 1 suitcase, but I can take, I can carry 2 suitcases of 23 kilos. And I said, if I give you, provide the suitcase, could I fill it with 23 kilos of cot quilts? And she said, oh, yes. Oh. So we, managed to get those across. One of our members, she had connection or has connections with an organisation called Change the One, and they were focusing, doing some work in the Philippines. And Change the One is started by an Australian businessman to solely take, all the donations, 100% goes to supporting adults and children in Vietnam that are impacted by Agent Orange. And they're seeing that even through the generations, children are being born with quite significant disabilities. So they've had teams of people going, so they take quilts with them. Sometimes he takes, quilts. locally, it's people of just connections that we've had. Someone will say, "Oh, you're making quilts." Well, my daughter works as a nurse at like Royal Children's Hospital, and they're always looking for quilts to really, make the wards look colourful. So I thought, okay, we could help with that. And Monash newborns unit, again, connection, that a conversation that somebody's had. Aged care settings, Kirkbrae, that's in Kilsyth. We developed, I guess, connection, particularly during COVID, because they were one of the aged care settings that was quite hit quite hard with COVID, and we were able to drop some quilts off, kind of different people in terms of where they're working and driving past and putting them into place, and sending a text message, yes, they're here. And we started with like Mother's Day and gifting quilts for Mother's Day. And then the men said, well, what about us? When are we going to get our quilts? And then the lady said, well, maybe you'll have to wait till Father's Day. So that's, for a couple of years, that's been going something special that we are able to do. So again, it's connections, that conversations and connecting. Yeah. With Maroondah Rotary. One of the members, her neighbour, is a member of the Maroondah Rotary, and was talking about their project in Refuge Victoria. And she said, oh, would you like some quilts? And I said, oh, we'd love some. Cottage by the Sea is another local, well, they're based in Queenscliff, but that came through a group that we were speaking to earlier this year, and one of the ladies said, I think Cottage by the Sea might like some of these quilts. So again, we made contact, and yeah, it just keeps going.
Keeps on spreading out, I can
Yes.
tell.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, are there other questions? Santosh, I think I saw you had unmuted. So yes, you first, and then Jackie.
Yeah, congratulations. I think it's a wonderful concept, but only disappointment is when these success stories, why they don't get spread? Why don't we encourage for others to follow it up with something else?
We're very fortunate. We're well supported with our local paper, Star Mail, and a couple of journalists, and they will often print articles. We can contact them, or they hear about something that we've done and they'll come and take photos. And that's how we've also raised local, members from people that they hadn't heard of us. We'd moved to Hoddles Creek Hall, and we've had ladies join us from Warburton, Yarra Junction, Launching Place, like all around that area. And our local community railway, not railway station. I kept thinking I grew up in a area, and our local community station was at a railway station. I should say our community radio that's at Healesville. Alan Collier is also a big, assists us with promoting through the community radio and community connections. So there are, I think, people look at locally, there are, I guess, local places that are helping to promote, what we're doing and what different groups are doing. Nationally, I think, or, metropolitan wide, perhaps there's not the, not as much of the positive stories. So the positive stories, I think, are quite powerful. But looking, and I didn't really realise the average age of our membership, because when I was looking to apply for a grant through the Yarra Ranges Council, I thought, I just wonder what the average age is. And I thought 70. We've got people in their 80s, mid-80s, and they're still using long arm quilting machines and teaching us, and in terms of looking at those ages. So I thought it's pretty incredible that, the average age of 70, and encouraging that there's an opportunity for particularly, I think, for women also to get together. And I guess men's sheds do a similar, a similar thing.
Libby, I want to be a member of your organization.
Libby, do you actually train people in quilting? Or do you expect people to sort of have the skills by the time they come and join you?
A combination. We don't formally kind of teach in terms of being, quilt teachers, but we share our knowledge and share our skills. And I've learned so much from just working alongside some other ladies. So it's probably a good idea to be able to use a sewing machine, have some, a little bit of knowledge. But in terms of learning what to do, we share and encourage one another. And we've got ladies that are very, very experienced quilters, and I look at that and I'm just in awe. Some ladies some people have a natural ability with colours to put things together, and just learning from them. But there's always people that are willing to stop and show each other what we can do. And sometimes I can have done things umpteen dozen times and I get a mental blank and I think, hang on a minute, how do I join this bit of binding and the two bits of fabric? And everybody's, a lot of patience and kindness. Yeah.
It's amazing when you're sort of sitting working together how things just sort of the knowledge spreads, doesn't it? And
yes, And the yellow quilt that's behind me, there's a pink and a blue one. We've all worked together. So what we were doing, people were working on a block and then we join it together and do the next block. So these ones behind me, part of our fabric hugs for the Yarra Rangers. They are real community quilts. Everybody's had contributed in the group at the hall.
Great. Thank you. I know that Alan Collier has had some interactions with Libby, and Libby mentioned that in the past. So I'm going to ask Alan if you would like to move a vote of thanks to Libby on our behalf, please.
Libby, thanks very much for addressing us this afternoon. I know a fair bit about your organisation. I think it's amazing what you do. And what I'm probably a bit disappointed is that there are so many organisations like Libby's around that we don't hear about. I mean, I came across it because of being involved with the community radio, and that's part of my job, is to let people know what's going on. But there are hundreds of different groups out there just doing magic stuff. And I know years ago I was on the down on council, and you cannot, no government anywhere could afford to pay the amount of labour and the amount of things that go into any of these organisations. So I think it's a great job, Libby. I know you're coming in again to plug the up at Mount Delancey later. I think it's early November.
October.
Sorry?
Yes, November, but we're coming in October.
Yeah, for November.
Yes.
Look, I hope you make a lot of money. And I guess if anybody is interested, I'm sure Libby would be happy to take any donations. But Libby, thanks for giving your time this afternoon, and I'm sure it's very enlightening to people who've never heard anything about your organisation, and thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you. Be able to share our story, and anyone that wants some speakers, just info@quiltsfororphans.org. Thank you.
Indeed. Thanks very much, Libby. That brings our session to almost to a close. I do encourage people to keep an eye on the newsletters that we put out regularly to members of the association. And when we organise special events, of course, we always send out special emails to let you know all about that. So with that, thank you again, Libby. It's been great to have you with us, and I will close this meeting and say good night to everyone.